It's safe to say that after the recent Nintendo Direct, people's excitement for Donkey Kong Bonanza has gone through the roof. And one of the biggest talking points that has emerged is the introduction of a younger Pauline who joins DK on his adventure and seems to be the heart of the journey itself. It's a refreshing and, frankly, exciting take on the relationship between these two characters. And yet, it flies in the face of decades of lore that has always been loose at best. After all, there were debates for years about whether Cranky Kong was DK's father or grandfather. And this matters because it has been long established that Cranky is the original Donkey Kong from the arcade games. So if he's the current DK's father, that means DK is DK Jr. grown up. But if he's DK's grandfather, then he's the son of DK Jr. And I've just said DK so many times that it's hard to keep track of what in the world I'm actually talking about. But people care about this. There's an innate desire to square away all the existing lore in a way that fits and makes sense, whether just for fun or because the person really cares about the material. And this was simple to do back in the 90s when Donkey Kong Country ruled the console space and there were far less games to keep track of. The first Country game even made it a point to kick out Cranky, who's old and unhip, for this newer, edgier DK who dances to a boombox. It's a statement, but it also establishes the passing of time. And Donkey Kong for the Game Boy, which was released in 1994 along with Donkey Kong Country, doesn't mess with the timeline as the old DK simply kidnapped Pauline again. It takes place at a past point where Mario has become far more athletic and the journey has grown far longer than 4 stages. There really wasn't much to keep track of after that point. DK started showing up in crossovers like Mario Party, Mario Tennis, Mario Kart, and so on, which could be seen as odd. After all, Mario looks to be the same age, while modern Donkey Kong could be a grown-up junior or even junior son. But it was explainable if our favorite apes age more rapidly than Mario. Sure, why not? Then along comes 2006, where Yoshi's Island DS and Mario vs. Donkey Kong 2 release, and suddenly lore keepers have to get creative again. Yoshi's Island DS features a baby DK alongside baby Mario, Wario, and Peach. That can't be a baby modern DK if he aged at the same time as Mario, so it instead has to be baby Cranky. Simple enough. In the case of Mario vs. Donkey Kong 2, Donkey Kong kidnaps a returning Pauline, where she matches the role she's typically played. But this is the first time modern DK has shown any interest in kidnapping women. It seems to go against his heroic persona in the Rare games or his other solo titles. Again, lore keepers have to suggest that DK just gets jealous when it comes to Mario. His toy wasn't preferred by Pauline, so he flies off the handle and has to be taught a lesson. It was something that could be shrugged off at the time, though now these interactions feel all the more important. I'll get to that in a bit though. Since 2006, there haven't been that many significant additions to Donkey Kong's lore. He had plenty of adventures, but nothing that would change how his history worked. Not even Pauline becoming the mayor of New Donk City in Super Mario Odyssey messed with what was established, though it did seem odd that she was so friendly toward her old kidnapper and even named the many streets after characters from his solo games. And it's here that Donkey Kong Bonanza comes into play. At face value, it seems like it could be easily slotted into the timeline, especially as a prequel to Pauline's appearance in Mario vs. Donkey Kong and Super Mario Odyssey. There's even dialogue in Odyssey where she mentions she was captured by an ape. It's easy to assume that's DK, but it could retroactively be made to reference Void Kong and her time as Oddrock. It would explain why she's so forgiving of DK's jealousy, why DK would be upset that Pauline chose Mario's Mini over DK's, and why she named an entire city after him. It's sweet, and certainly matches the vibe of their relationship shown during the Direct. But then other details start becoming a nuisance. If Pauline is a child, then why is she hanging out with modern DK? It has to be modern DK because Cranky Kong is prominently featured and even references Mario. There's no indication that Pauline was transformed into a child, as she earnestly talks about her dreams, so the two elements just don't match up. It becomes this puzzle of how to resolve the inconsistencies, something that's all too familiar for Zelda fans. And the simple fact is, it may never be resolved, because Nintendo doesn't care. Now here's the thing, I'm glad Nintendo doesn't care. If they rigidly stuck to the established relationship of DK and Pauline, then something like Bonanza wouldn't be possible. It'd be antagonistic and forced to end with the two at odds and Pauline needing to be rescued. And that's just a sad way to end off what seems to be a touching journey between the two. They encourage one another, support each other, and look to be a duo that I found myself getting emotional over just in the little snippets from the Direct. That feels like an impossible feat. So I don't care that the lore doesn't match and seemingly throws everything out of whack. I think the trade-off is more than worth it. That being said, it's not impossible to make the timeline work out. The simplest solution actually takes very little effort to resolve. The young Pauline in Bonanza is actually the Pauline from the original game's daughter. Where did she come from? How is she so much older when she made no appearance in Odyssey? I have no idea. There are a number of ways to get around that, but there would be a poetic dichotomy to it taking place at the same time as Odyssey. Mario traveling around and above the world while DK travels farther beneath it. Of course, this then leads to the question of why everything in New Donk City is named after Donkey Kong when this adventure hasn't happened yet. There was nothing about Pauline's relationship with him that warranted this celebration up to this point. It's why Bonanza works so well as a prequel, as this would be the first time Pauline has met Diddy, Dixie, Rambi, and whoever else awaits below. Another possibility is that Pauline's transformation into Oddrock did somehow reverse her age, and so her wish at the center of the earth is to restore her age as well as aid her singing career. The adventure would leave a mark on her, and she'd use her new fame to celebrate DK much more than before. It seems a little too easy, and the game could easily negate this idea, so it's not one I'm fond of. I've also seen the suggestion that Mario and DK's world functions much like Zelda's, where the characters are reincarnated throughout time with their own unique adventures. It's a fun idea as a lark, but nah, that just doesn't sound right. Unless... well, remember that Super Mario Galaxy released in 2007 and essentially ends with the reboot of the universe. It doesn't seem to have any tangible effect on Mario's cast, but perhaps it affected DK and Pauline, revising it so that the two actually met later on and became friends. The theory is completely ridiculous and would never be confirmed by Nintendo, as they never dive that deep into the lore, but it is fun to think about. And that's where I come down on lore in Nintendo games. Sometimes the series makes it easy to track, like with Metroid or Fire Emblem, but other times it's merely a vehicle for whatever idea Nintendo had next. I've come to accept that and even appreciate it to some degree. Rather than searching for connections and expanded lore, I take the game as its own entity, and it's freeing to think of a game like that. Connecting the lore is fun, but it's nothing worth getting upset about. Debate, toss out ideas, scour the game for evidence that supports your theories, it's all fine. There's just no reason to become a jerk about it. Everyone has their own canon, and none are more valuable than another. I'm just excited to see what the full story of DK and Pauline will be like. Will the game actually get me to tear up through her songs? Will there be some actual character development? What other characters might they meet along the way? Those are the questions that excite me going into Bonanza. The lore? It's just a fun distraction. But how do you feel? Do you care about Bonanza seemingly breaking away from established lore? How excited are you for the game itself? Let us know in the comments, and thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing to GVG, hitting the like button, and ringing that bell. We also have a Patreon at patreon.com/GVGaming with plenty of extra perks. So until next time, bye!